Let's take a very important look at your life for a second and think, are you frustrated daily? Why are you frustrated? People offend you. Do they not live up to expectations you might have, or do they say bad things to you? Or maybe you don't like the way that you even treat yourself. What's going on there? Boundaries. You know that you lack them. You know that you don't have them. You know it's a problem enforcing them. Now, the thing about boundaries is people believe you just have them and you just magically know how it works. But if no one taught you this real world stuff, then how would you know it? How would it come to you, right? In school, they never teach us real world stuff. They think just taxes, math, science, dodgeball. What about how to live your life? What about how to create boundaries? What about a framework for that or a system so you can implement it? Now, I've been studying self-development, in fact, unintentionally as a student for the last 15 years. I've done over 500 books, seminars, and courses in that area. And when I did that, I learned that there was no real world self-development. A lot of it was just sitting down and being able to think about what the problem was, but no active way to implement it in your life. So this real world self-development was always bothering me when I started doing dating advice because it was something that was lacking. And when I did dating advice, I went out to the real world, what we call in-field, with students every single weekend, and I took them to bars, lounges, nightclubs, and I saw how the world interacted with them in real time and tweaked it and made adjustments. That kind of information and learning is priceless because it made me an amazing teacher. It made me have to learn how to take these ideas and implement it in the student's mind. So, when it comes to boundaries and standards, how do we do it? How do we implement it in the real world? Well, that's what I'm going to show you today. Today I want to break down the difference between what I call active boundaries and reactive boundaries and show you the difference of the two. And once you understand the difference, you learn how to implement it. Now I go into this my 4-day self-help, which is a 4-day interactive experience where I break down all the knowledge I've accumulated through dating advice and living life, literally like having the emotional age of 100 years old, and I teach you how to implement these things. So this is coming into Toronto, this is coming to Amsterdam, this is coming to Stockholm, and many, many other dates. So if you're in those cities, I recommend you take the opportunity to come see me, and I can work on this with you face to face. But if not, I'd love to still help you understand your boundaries a little bit more. So I actually have some free event dates you can check out. Toronto, very, very soon is happening. And then I have a few European dates as well. So we'll put those on the screen so you can see that. I recommend that you go somewhere down below here, okay? Use your fingers and the mouse and click the link, because the benefit of that is you can see me face to face and I can work with you on your particular lack of boundaries. Now that you've done that, you click the URL, right? You've done that. Watch the video. You're gonna learn a lot from it. It's honestly some of the most powerful stuff I've ever created, and this came out of necessity. Everything that I teach here is done out of necessity for myself. I didn't think that this stuff was necessary until I realized I was failing, and I had to create a way to teach it to myself, and now I can take that and teach it to you. So get ready, enjoy. So your question is the difference between value and comfort. What do you need? And I said you need both. You need value and you need comfort. You don't need just one. Now your challenge is sometimes you're too high value, the girls, I guess you lose them because you're not relatable. And if you're too comfortable, you just end up in the friend zone. So what I'd say to you is this, you actually have soft boundaries. If you had stronger mental boundaries, that wouldn't happen. You wouldn't catch yourself going too low. This happens to me all the time, but I've worked with systems around it. Here's a framework you can use. I flew out a girl lately to a city that I was in. And that already is a huge comfort move. You might think it's a value move because you're like, here's all my cash and a ticket, but it's not. It's actually a huge comfort move because guys that are very beta will do the same thing, okay? So the ticket's like $400 US for the round trip. So I fly her out, and then at first it's cool, you know, she's like respectful and everything's great and everything's fine. And we're just telling stories and we're going out to lunch and everything's hunky-dory. But eventually, at some point, what happens is that I show too much comfort. My boundaries start to slip. And one day, we're walking down the street, she's just annoying me, just like nagging me about random things. And eventually I'm texting somebody and she kind of just like grabs the phone out of my hand. She's like, she's like, who is this? Like literally snatches the phone out of my hand. And I'm like, oh no, oh no. Because at some point, it's like, is Rick James gonna have to? No, I'm just kidding. It's not that, right? But I noticed that there's something wrong there. So what I did in that moment is I snapped. I was like, what do you think you're doing? You never grab a phone out of a man's hand. And I kind of went off on her. And actually, we were in the Uber when this happened. So, yeah. So for me, it's like what I learned in the past is if you have a boundary and you're very lax on it, it's usually too late. You have to react in the moment. In the past, there's been a girl that's like went on a date with me. Maybe I ordered her a bunch of drinks, and she's like messing around the whole time, like on her phone, or she's like ignoring me, or she's like late or whatever. And I only mentioned it when she got home and mentioned it like in text message. She's like, whatever, that's your problem, bye. I've had that happen before, right? You might have had a girl that you went on a date with, and then you saw her like making out with some other dude, and instead of addressing it in that moment, you addressed it like a day later, and she's like, whatever, bye. Because it showed you weren't a man enough to address it in that moment, okay? You have to have the boundary in that moment. So for my training, I learned get mad right away, and then apologize later, okay? You have to get mad right away. They just want to feel an emotion. So I got mad, and then later on in the day, she's like, you did that, and you embarrassed me in front of the taxi driver. If you have something to say, just save it till later usually, right? So she's enforcing her boundary. But as the man, I had to enforce mine first, right? Does that make sense? You have to enforce your own boundary first. There's a lot of strength is shown in the boundary. Now, what I want to tell you guys is that there's two types of boundaries. This is the definition here I've noticed, okay? There's a boundary that's active, and there's a boundary that's reactive. Reactive, okay? Boundary that's what? Active, proactive, and boundary that's reactive. Those are the two types, okay? Write that down. If you don't know it, now you know. A reactive boundary is what I did. Somebody crossed the line. Somebody did something I didn't like. Somebody offended me. Somebody didn't keep their promise, and I reacted to it, okay? Now, this is great if your boundaries are fucking soft. This is amazing, because you're just getting started, bro. That's great. If you have no boundaries at all, then you're just getting started, right? A reactive boundary is somebody spills a beer on your shirt at a club. A reactive boundary is a girl said she'd show up for a date, but she's 2 hours late and doesn't call, right? And you're like, that's unacceptable. A reactive boundary could be your buddy borrows $500 from you, and he doesn't message you back or doesn't pay you back. That's a reactive boundary. Now you gotta address it. The way you address it is you use what I call big energy. Would be where you explain, you say this, there's 3 stages to it. You go, what you liked about the person before, or the situation, what you don't like about the person or situation, number 2, and then where you're gonna go from here. Where you're gonna go from here. So if it's a buddy that borrowed $500 from you, it's like, hey man, you know what? I saw you struggling, man. You're my close bro, I've known you for a long time, and I'm always willing to help you out because you helped me. That's what you like so far, what you don't like. But then you just disappear for last week. No explanation, no communication, and that's not the bro code, okay? And then where do you go from here? So from here on, here's what's gonna happen. I'm gonna wait for you to hit me back as a good dude, but if you can't treat this right, this is not very good for our friendship, and I don't know how we're gonna continue, right? Boom, boundary. That's how you do a reactive boundary. But the reactive boundary has one huge major fucking problem, okay? So like, what do you think happened with this girl? For example, I already told you, so I kind of cheated, but this girl that I flew out, what happened when I had this boundary about grabbing my phone? What's the problem with a reactive boundary?
Too late. It's reactive.
Yeah, it's too late. Is there a song for too late? It's too late. What's that?
It's too late to apologize.
Yeah, too late. Yeah, exactly, yeah. It's too late to apologize. It's too late. It was too late. It was way too late because you're still reactive, yes or no? Yeah, you're still reactive. So even though you have the boundary, you're reactive. So the person, you don't know how they're gonna take it. They can be like, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize it. That rarely happens. Or they're like, you know what? That's your problem. You deal with it. You deal with it. Right? Or you're cheap. Or what's your fucking problem? So even if you have a reactive boundary, it only works 25% of the time or less. It's better than nothing. It's better than nothing, but it doesn't always work because it requires the other person on the other end to be responsible. And sometimes that shit doesn't happen. right? It doesn't happen. Anybody have an example of a time that they had a reactive boundary and they said to the person, yeah?
I was on a date with one of my homegirls, and she's like, I'll meet you at 9. So I show up to the club at 9, she's not there, and I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna pimp, do my thing. I'm pimping, I'm probably better know it's like 11:30, and I'm like, where's she at? So I text her, I'm like, hey, where you at? She's like, I'm hunting for crystals. I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, I'm at this hippie's house, and like, she's gonna sell me some healing crystals. I'm like, you do realize we're supposed to meet at 9.
Yeah, we have a date. So how did you enforce the boundary?
So I was like, what do you call it? I told her, I know until you apologize and you buy me a steak dinner, we're not hanging out.
Right, and then what'd she say?
She said, well, you're a dick and you shouldn't be mad at me. I'm like, you left me by myself, I'm being bombarded by 3-person swingers. I got offered $200 to come to tonight.
So you said, because the person flaked on you, you said, hey, I was waiting here for 2 hours and that was not cool. And if you're gonna do this again, we're gonna meet up next time. Let's like buy me a steak or something like that, or we're done. And she's like, you're a dick, well, right? Wait. So she says you're a dick. And
she followed that up. She's like, hey, you shouldn't be mad at me. And then I texted her, I'm like, you can waste my money, you can waste my happiness, whatever. But you can't waste my time. I'm never gonna get that back. I didn't tell her that. I was like having fun the whole time.
Now, did you eventually see her again or no?
She told all my friends that I'm like, she made.
This is a yes or no question. Yes or no question.
No, I never saw her.
Okay, you never saw her again. Okay, so there you go. He said to the person who flaked on him, hey, listen, you flaked on me. I waited here for you for 2 hours. If you want to hang out again, at least like take me to dinner next time to make up for me, or we probably won't get along. The person said, you're a dick, AKA for having boundaries, calling me out on my shit that I don't really want to deal with, because nobody wants to deal with their shit, right? Nobody really wants to deal with their bullshit. And now you're putting their bullshit in the light and they have to deal with it. They don't like that. So, AKA, you're a dick. Everybody turn to him and say, you're a dick. You're a dick. You're a dick, right? But, and then after that, after he feels like he's a dick, he loses the person. He lost the girl. But positive feedback happens where at least he has boundaries now and the boundaries continue to grow, right? Now, what could have happened is she's like, I'm sorry, I apologize, da-da-da. But again, that rarely happens. That's not the go-to strategy. When you enforce a boundary, you have to be willing to lose the other person. If they can't meet you at the table, you have to be willing to lose them. Same thing happens in a business partnership, all relationships. If they can't respect the boundary, then maybe you can't hustle with them, right? It's like if you tried to have unprotected sex and the other person was like, not without a condom, and you forced it without a condom, that would be unconsensual. It would be wrong, and that person would have to have a strong boundary of not seeing you ever again and probably leaving that moment, right? Fair? So we have to all have those boundaries. So that's a reactive boundary. On the other side now, there's a proactive boundary, and that works 80% of the time. And that's where we tell somebody in advance the expectations, like, hey, you know what, when we're gonna get together later, I hope that da-da-da happens, or what I'm expecting is da-da-da, are you cool with that? Are you down with that? Et cetera, right? So you put the boundary in place before shit hits the fan, before that even happens. So the way I do that on a date is I say, hey, let's meet for a quick coffee just to make sure that we like each other and we don't want to tear each other's heads off. Then, if we get along, we'll go on the real date. But keep your evening free. See what I'm saying? I put the boundary there. That way I don't end up, because I've had too many dates where I ended up in a dinner date, the girl's just like, thank you, and left. I have a buddy of mine that has tickets to Raptors games. Every time I take a girl to the Raptors game, she just Instagrams herself at the basketball game. And she's like, thank you, bye, and just like walks out, right?
Go Spurs.
So he has to put the boundary there in advance, right? So for you as a dude, even if you're buying a drink for a girl, you have to put the boundary there in advance. Like, listen, I'm gonna buy this drink, but if you're one of these girls who just gets the drink and before I'm even done paying for it, you're off, and you're dead to me, or something like that, right? Literally, because just buy the drink and it's like, thank you. Like, you could talk to a girl for half an hour. Sometimes you buy her a drink and then she'll just walk off the moment the drink is bought. You're like, why did this person talk to me for half an hour? You know? And on the flip side, women have boundaries too that they enforce, but sometimes they don't enforce them as that well. You know, if a girl says like, I'm only kissing on the third date, that's fine, but that's a boundary that's there because somebody hurt you in the past, right? So we're all struggling to enforce our boundaries. But what I want to give you, this main thing is, just because you have a reactive boundary doesn't mean it's always gonna work out. It's better than nothing. If you're soft, if you have no personal boundaries, start with reactive boundaries. That's a great place to start. It is comfort, because the person can trust you, so it does build comfort. And also it shows strength, right? Because you're standing up for yourself. So it does two things. It balances out, gives you strength and comfort in a boundary. And if you don't have them, then it's just the person can't trust you. Somebody who does not stand up for themselves can't be trusted, cannot be trusted. It's like if you had a dog, have you ever seen these dogs that are just like these dogs that are in the kennel that have been like beaten and abused, and like you walk by the dog and like you don't want to put your hand in the cage because like that fucking dog might just snap at any moment. Same thing with people. If you're just always positive and you don't have any boundaries, they don't trust you. They don't trust you. So that's why clowns creep me the fuck out. The only phobia I have is of clowns because they're always like 24 hours a day. I'm like, that can't be real, man. That can't be real. Huh?
You never seen a sad clown?
A sad clown? I believe that a little bit more. Yeah, sad clown, I trust that a little bit more. You know what I'm saying? It's like that guy didn't enforce his boundaries, that's why he's sad. But I trust it a little bit more. So that's the idea. If you want to, these big concepts in game like value versus comfort, I think they all just boil down to principles like this, like boundaries. If you have boundaries, there's comfort there. There's value there. There's sexuality. There's a little bit of a risk taker. There's a guy who's assertive, right? All these things we say what makes a guy attractive or sex worthy or whatever come with boundaries. And if we have these and we apply it, it makes it a lot easier. And again, I'm going to go into this more in like my 4-day self-help program, which I'm doing with RSD, and that'll be a huge part of it. Because I think as young professionals or young people, we don't know where our boundaries are. Or our boundaries have been so beaten over the years, we don't even know what they look like anymore. It's like a pile of mush on the floor. And we haven't had those boundaries for ourselves. And it feels uncomfortable to even think what our boundaries would be or how to express it. And I want you to be able to learn to express those boundaries and figure out what they are if you've lost them. The most horrible situation I see is when people come to me and I'm working with students and they're coming out of a divorce, and that's just like, man, boundary is just like taken away, like just been beaten up so much because you compromised so much, you don't even know who you are anymore. You never want to be in a position at work where you compromise, you don't even know who you are at work, and you're doing extra favors for people at work and nobody respects it. If you have that, that's a lack of boundaries. Yeah. If you're in a you have that? Yeah, I've had it before. I was like,
it comes out a little bit in relationships sometimes.
Yep. Well, it's going to start at the workplace. I truly believe that. I truly believe in life game, which means that who you are at work will translate to who you are in your dating life. There's no way about it. Okay? There's no way to separate the two. This idea that you're a pawn at work and then you go out and be a pimp is very unlikely. Okay? Who you are at work, if you're compromising your boundaries every single day at work, covering up for people, doing work that you don't respect, lying at work, doing extra work that you don't get credit for. If you are doing this in your job and you think you're gonna walk out the front door and all of a sudden like start respecting yourself in that way, it's not gonna happen. Because you're at your office 8 hours a day. Or you're at school 8 hours a day. So you gotta start working on it there. Start working on it there, just little by little. Just at least the reactive boundaries. Figure out how to have that big dick energy, that formula that I told you about, okay? Or big clit energy if you're a lady. Figure out how to have that and apply it. And then when you get to your dream person that you might meet on the street and they give you a little bit of attitude when you first meet them, you have a boundary and you respect yourself. And they go, wait a second, this person's different, I like this. Or they go, wait a second, you're stupid, or whatever they said to you, and they just leave, all right? That's cool because you didn't want them in your life anyways. But at least you're in a better position. And it creates more positive feedback for you. And you're happier overall. You respect yourself a little bit more. You're walking around with a little swagger in your step. You know what I mean? It happens. So for example, when I set up this room for you guys, I came in here, for you guys that were here early, the room was fucked. There was like tables and like all kinds of weird like stuff just like piled up in here. And I had to be like, hey, blah, 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 blah. And the guy was like, fine. And I was like, can I get this free microphone? And they were like, it's not included. It's an extra $300 for the microphone. And I said to them, hey, when I came here, the room was a mess. We were scheduled for 7 o'clock. Everything was upside down. the least you can do is give me a free microphone. Compromise for me here. By the way, another key thing of boundaries, try to make it so the other person isn't necessarily wrong. The more you can make it not their fault, the easier it is for them to say yes. If you're like, you fucked up, then what do? Get the defensive. Yeah. What do you mean I fucked up? No. It's like, hey man, how can we compromise here? The situation was bad when I walked in. Can I get this microphone free? What can you do for me here? He's like, oh, I'll see what I can do, right? And he came back and got the microphone, right? So we got this $300 microphone for free by having some boundaries. But most importantly, more than that, I can come in here and I can talk to you guys with authority in the space of boundaries because I'm practicing them all the time. If I didn't keep those boundaries, I'd walk in here and be like a schmuck. I'd be practicing what I don't preach. So again, I'm gonna go into this stuff really, really deep in my live programs, into the 4-day self-help, expanding on it, and so on. But this weekend, what I am gonna be doing is a program called Get Your 10 Live, where we also talk about boundaries. What I'll help you guys do is I'll help you guys map out your boundaries in detail this weekend on the program. It's actually Friday from 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock. So we'll sit down and we'll write down all of your goals, all of the qualities that you bring to the table. We'll get really, really clear on that. If you don't even know what your qualities are, because people don't tell you or you don't accept good things, we'll figure out what your qualities are. We'll figure out what kind of woman you want in your life. We'll figure out how to find that type of woman. Where's she gonna be? We'll figure out what that woman would want in a guy like you, okay? We'll do all that in detail. We're also gonna do a little bit of infield footage. I don't do very much of it anymore, but we're gonna show some infield footage. Me approaching, me opening, me dealing with hard interactions. You can see that. And by the way, there's this idea that RSD has gone like full self-help. We do self-help, but if you wanna learn like the pimp shit, come to the event. So if you wanna see that hardcore dating stuff, come to the event, it's all gonna be there, all right? So if you guys also have a challenge, we're gonna walk through whatever challenge you have. So just realize that you're in this room for a reason. You're not here by fluke, right? Like, you're here for a reason. There's people that said they were gonna come today and they didn't come. You guys at least showed up. Okay, so you're better than the 90% of those people. By the way, give yourself a round of applause for that. Yeah.